أهلا بيكم الدارسين في برنامج اللغة الإنجليزية مادة 113 جرامر 1 والنهاردة هنبتدي مع بعض المحاضرة الخامسة. طيب المحاضرة الخامسة دي نتكلم الأول شوية عنها كده. This is about subject verb agreement. يعني إيه subject verb agreement? That means that the subject and the verb should agree. يعني إيه they should agree؟ يعني if I have a verb, a subject in the singular, the verb must be singular. If the subject is plural, the verb must also be plural. يمكن احنا عارفين الحكاية دي ببساطة ان الفعل لازم بيبقى زي الفاعل. اذا كان الفاعل مفرد يبقى الفعل مفرد، اذا كان الفاعل جمع يبقى الفعل جمع. هقول لكم على حاجة بسيطة الناس كتير، يعني انا اسفة، كتير بيتلخبطوا فيها. خدوا بالكم ان الاس في الاسم، يعني the s in the noun means plural but the s in the verb means singular. يعني أنا لما يعني أقول students study, this is a very common mistake to find some people writing students studies على أساس إنها plural. لا، الس في الفعل للsingular، الس in the noun for the plural. This is one thing. في حاجة يعني which is a bit more tricky بتلخبط شوية كمان أكتر. دي لما يعني when you have a number of nouns in the sentence, sometimes you confuse which noun is the subject, which noun the verb must agree with. Like we said at the very beginning, you should always know what parts in the sentence are the main parts and what parts are not, what parts I can omit. The subject and the verb are the main parts. But do not confuse other nouns with the subject which is also a noun. يعني إيه؟ يعني أنا ممكن ألاقي في الوسط you know the prepositional phrases. The prepositional phrases يعني you have a preposition which is followed by a noun. The noun after the preposition is an object of the preposition, but sometimes you confuse it with the subject in the sentence. اخد بالي فين الاجزاء اللي ممكن احذفها لان اي جزء فيها هيبقى ملوش دعوه بالفعل الاساسي، واخد بالي من الجزء الاساسي اللي هو الفاعل. اخد بالي دايما من السبجكت والverb. Always decide which is the subject if you have a number of nouns that must agree with the verb. All right? طيب تعالوا نشوف مع بعض lecture 5. نقرا مع بعض كده. subject verb agreement. subject verb agreement ده الكلام اللي احنا قلناه دلوقتي. subject verb agreement means that if the subject is singular, the verb must be singular. If the subject is plural, the verb must be plural. An s in a verb indicates that the verb is singular, and an s in the noun indicates that the noun is plural. Notice that some nouns have irregular plural forms and do not end in s. زي مثلا men, children, people. لو عندي مثلا كلمة ox هتبقى oxen. English has many irregularities. Irregularities in verbs, irregularities in nouns, and so on. فمش دايما البلورال بينتهي بأس. طيب تعالوا نشوف المثالين دول. She works at a bank. She subject works verb singular لأن في أس أهو. They work at a bank. طيب subject verb agreement may seem very simple. يعني هنقول دي بسيطة أوي. But there are some cases nevertheless which are tricky. يعني فيها حيل شوية بتلخبط which are confusing and you should be careful of subject verb agreement. طيب نشوف بقى يعني what these cases are. Be careful of prepositional phrases. احنا عارفين ال prepositional phrases a number of words that are introduced that begin with a preposition. Do not confuse subjects with objects of prepositional phrases that may come between subjects and their verbs. طيب ما احنا عارفين ان subjects and objects are nouns. يبقى مفروض لما يبقى عندي 2 nouns or 3 nouns in a sentence, I should decide which is the main noun, يعني which is the subject in the sentence. شوف الجملتين دول. The vaccine for the colds are available. طيب أنا عندي هنا a prepositional phrase اللي هي for the colds. يبقى colds دي إيه؟ This is the object of the preposition for. لكن for the colds كلها على بعضها أنا ممكن أشيلها. يبقى where is the subject? It's the vaccine. The vaccine is singular. يبقى the verb is singular. The vaccine is available. ما ننساش أو يعني do not confuse colds which comes just after, just before the verb. Do not confuse it with the subject لأن هنا it's an object. لكن الفاعل هنا الجزء الأساسي الاسم الأساسي في الجملة هو ده. The vaccine is available. يعني whatever comes in between adds information. بزود الكلام، بدي إضافات للكلام، لكن ممكن أحذفه. أنا بقول the vaccine is available، الفاكسين موجود، المصل موجود. هقول مصل إيه؟ for the colds، مصل بتاع البرد أو أنواع البرد. Let's look at the next sentence. The vaccines for the cold، أنا بتكلم هنا على نوع واحد من أنواع البرد، الأنفلونزا مثلا. The vaccines for the cold ما بقولش is لأن الفعل مش بيرتبط بcold، الفعل بيرتبط بvaccines. This is the subject in the sentence and the verb should agree. The subject is plural, the vaccines, the verb must be plural. لأن مش بقول the vaccines is available، بقول the vaccines are available. Alright? Do not think that colds in the first sentence is the subject because it comes before the verb. It is the object of the preposition for. The subject is vaccine, which is singular, and the verb must be singular. Again, in the second sentence, cold is the object of the preposition, and the subject is a plural subject. The verb must also be a plural verb. طيب. يعني this is our rule. Subject-verb agreement with prepositional phrases. لما يبقى عندي prepositional phrase أو phrases جاية ما بين السبجect والverb. When a prepositional phrase comes between the subject and the verb, be sure that the verb agrees with the subject. This is the subject, this one, and this is the verb. The verb must agree with its subject. All right? طيب, let's look at exercise 1 then. Each exercise 20, that's rule 20 we are studying today. Each of the following sentences has one or more prepositional phrases between the subject and the verb. Underline the subjects once and the verbs twice and put the prepositional phrases in boxes. Indicate if the sentences are correct, C, or incorrect. Type. Let's look at number 1. The injured demonstrators in Tahrir Square in Cairo need to be rescued. Type. The injured demonstrators in Tahrir Square, which is بادية preposition, so Tahrir Square is not the subject. In Cairo, again this is another prepositional phrase, يبقى Cairo is not the subject. طيب, the injured demonstrators, يبقى الكلمة يعني the subject here is demonstrators, which is a plural verb, so the verb must be plural. The injured demonstrators need to be rescued. طيب, let's look at number 2. The interrogation. يعني انتوا فاكرين احنا قلنا احنا مش ضروري نبقى عارفين معاني كل الكلمات على فكرة علشان نقدر نعمل الجرامر صح او نقدر نعرف ان الجرامر في جملة معينة صح. The interrogation of the former president. طيب يبقى of the former president يعني دي prepositional phrase مش عايزينها. Conducted by 3 judges. من اول على فكرة conducted by 3 judges. انتوا فاكرين لما خدنا قبل كده لما خدنا adjective clauses which may be reduced. يبقى this is an adjective clause which is reduced. برضو it's not a main part of the sentence. يبقى the interrogation of the former president conducted by 3 judges. Which is conducted by 3 judges. عندي حاجات كتير قوي في الجملة دي. يعني أنا هقول مثلا إن the interrogation is the subject of the former president prepositional phrase. Conducted. أفكركم شوية وممكن تعيدوا سماع الحتة دي. Conducted دي مش هي reduced form بتاع which is conducted أو which was conducted. وممكن على فكرة أقول which is conducted present وممكن أقول which was conducted لأنها لسه مستمرة وممكن أقول على أساس إن أنا بتكلم في الماضي الجزء اللي فات. طيب by 3 judges this is a prepositional phrase برضو. have lasted this is the verb يبقى the interrogation have lasted. طيب أنا عارفة إن interrogation is a noun أولا لأنها جاية في أول الجملة هتبقى subject وعارفة من إن ال TION this is the ending of a noun. في نهايات كده للأفعال ونهايات يعني حتى لو مش عارفة معنى الكلمة أعرف إن حاجة منتهية ب TION is a noun وجاية كمان في أول جملة تبقى هي subject. the interrogation يبقى مش have lasted لا has lasted. for more than 3 months الجزء ده برضو is a prepositional phrase لكن جاي بعد الفعل مش مهم قوي عندي. الجملة الأساسية هنا the interrogation has lasted. This is incorrect because interrogation is a singular noun that needs a singular verb. يبقى the interrogation has lasted. طيب let's look at number 3. The neighbors in the next apartment is leaving tonight. طيب أنا عندي كلمة apartment ممكن هتلخبط وأقول إن this is the subject of the verb is لا. In the next apartment this is a prepositional phrase اللي هنلاقيها بعد شوية في ال answer key in a box. The neighbors in the next apartment دي هشيلها خالص. يبقى the neighbors is leaving tonight. The neighbors is plural so I need a plural verb. The neighbors are leaving tonight. طيب the former president surrounded by guards is being interrogated by the judge. The former president surrounded who is surrounded دي برضو reduced adjective by guards is a prepositional phrase is being interrogated. يبقى the former president singular subject is being interrogated singular verb ما تلخبطناش وقلنا surrounded by guards are being لا surrounded by guards this is a part of the sentence which is not basic it only adds information. طيب let's look at number 5. The police stations destroyed during the revolution. The police stations destroyed which were destroyed the reduced adjective. The police stations which were reduced or reduced during the revolution this is a prepositional phrase were rebuilt at our expense. برضو at our expense دي ما تهمنيش قوي because this comes after the verb. يبقى the police stations were rebuilt, plural subject and plural verb. Let's look at number 6. Because of the low performance in the company, because of the low performance in the company, انتوا عارفين this is a sentence with an adverb clause at the beginning. وانتوا عارفين من الأول إن ال adverb clause may come at the beginning and be separated from the rest of the sentence by a comma, or it may come at the end. طيب يبقى برضو جزء مش مهم عندي. Because of the low performance in the company, the board of directors have called for an emergency meeting. طيب هنبتدي الجملة الأساسية من هنا. The board of directors, مجلس الإدارة, the board of directors have called. مفروض this is the verb of directors or board. طيب of directors, directors is a preposition of the preposition of. يبقى الفعل عندي هو ايه؟ The subject is the board. The board is singular. يبقى the board of directors has called for an emergency meeting. Alright, let's look at number 7. Production of the refrigerators that you ordered have been discontinued because of the company's losses. Type of the refrigerators, this is a prepositional phrase, not needed. يبقى الكلمة الأساسية هنا عندي إيه؟ production. That you ordered دي adjective clause بتوصف إيه؟ بتوصف refrigerators. طيب يبقى برضو جزء مش مهم، كأن الجزء الأساسي هنا عندي production. هنيجي للفعل بقى اللي هو have been discontinued. Production singular, subject have been is wrong، مفروض انها تبقى has been discontinued. الانتاج توقف. كل الباقي في الجملة ده اضافات، لكن من ناحية الجرامر production has been discontinued, subject and verb. Production of what? Of the refrigerators. What refrigerators؟ بديها صفة that you ordered. Why؟ عندي تاني برضو adverb clause because of the company's losses. لكن الجزء الأساسي production has been discontinued. طيب let's look at number 8. Development of any new products يبقى هشيل of any new products. Prepositional phrase. In the future another prepositional phrase. يبقى أنا عندي development has to be decided by the board. This is correct because development is a singular subject, has to be, this is a singular verb. Let's look at number 9. The timetable of the exams, type of the exams, prepositional phrase. Posted on walls, adjective phrase. Reduced طبعا لأنها كانت ممكن تبقى which is posted on walls، لكن أنا شلتها وعملتها، شلت الفاعل اللي هو الضمير which وبقت عندي prepositional phrase. طيب the timetable of the exams posted in the walls دي adjective clause بتوصف أنهي كلمة؟ احنا بنراجع الحاجات اللي فاتت كمان، بتوصف كلمة exams. طيب the timetable of the exams posted on the walls in all classes. In all classes دي again it's a prepositional phrase بتعود على كلمة ايه؟ walls. طيب are ادي يا دوب جه الفعل. طيب are going to be changed. يعني do not think that are is the verb of the word classes. لأن كل الجزء ده من أول of the exams posted on walls in all classes, this is a part of the sentence that grammatically I can omit. من ناحية القواعد ممكن أحذفه، لكن هي the timetable is going to be changed. The timetable is the subject, singular subject that needs a singular verb. طيب تعالوا بقى يعني علشان لما تكونوا بتشوفوا السي دي بتراجعوا لوحدكم، تعالوا نبص على الانسر كي علشان تبان برضو تقدروا تجيبوها. طيب ادي الانسر كي. طيب this is the first sentence. You have subjects underlined once, verbs underlined together, underlined twice, and you have all the prepositional phrases in boxes. When the sentence is wrong, you have the correction. By 3 judges have lost it. Like بنقول the interrogation has lost it. Like number 3, again it's incorrect, and the neighbors are leaving. Number 5, you can of course stop the sentence and look at it until you understand. Look at the corrections and number 10. All right, we move again now to rule number 21. Verbs agree with expressions of quantity. It's not just that verbs agree with subjects, but verbs agree with expressions of quantity. يعني expressions of quantity يعني لو قلت all, half, most, some. طيب when an expression of quantity is a subject followed by of, the subject all, half, most, or some may be singular or plural depending on the noun that follows the preposition of. مش أنا بقول all of, some of, most of, half of. طيب the subject is all or half or most or some، لكن الفعل مفروض بيتفق مع ايه؟ بيتفق مع ال object of the preposition of. يعني انا لما اقول هنا مثلا all، اقول was up، ما هو all هي subject، اقول all was upgraded علشان all دي يعني دي كلمة هي لا فيها اس ولا حاجة، لا. all is an expression or is a word of quantity. اللي بيقول اني استعمل بقى الفعل in the singular or in the plural what comes after all or some or half or most. يعني لو قلت all of the material and the material is singular يبقى I need a singular verb. All of the material was upgraded, developed. لكن لو قلت all of the materials كل المواد were upgraded، لأن الفعل عندي بيتفق مع الكلمة اللي جت بعد ال preposition. Alright؟ طيب all of the information was upgraded. ليه؟ لأن كلمة information is a non-countable noun. non-countable noun يعني ما بنحطلهاش s، لكن هي ممكن تدل على جمع، لكن هي it's a noun and it's non-countable. non-countable يعني مش بحط لها s. زي كلمات كتير قوي، زي كلمة مثلا money. كلمة money أنا ما بقولش monies، وبعتبر ان money is a singular word. كلمة زي advice، نصيحة. advice is a non-countable noun. دي بتعتبر singular، بتاخد singular verb. all non-countable nouns take a singular verb. طيب subject verb agreement after expressions of quantity عندي almost, some, half, of. طبعا بعد of هيجي noun which is the object of the preposition of، بعدين بيجي الverb. طيب the verb agrees with this object. When a prepositional phrase comes between the subject and the verb, be sure that the verb agrees with the subject. لا احنا ممكن نقول ايه؟ Be sure that the verb agrees with the object of the preposition of. Okay? تعالوا نشوف exercise 21. The subject in each of these sentences is a quantity expression. طبعا لأنه هو جه اللي في الأول. Underline subjects once and verbs twice. Put the objects that the verbs agree with in boxes. طبعا لأن the object or the verb agrees with the object in the prepositional phrase, not with the subject اللي هو all ولا most ولا of type. تعالوا نغير دي. When a prepositional phrase comes between the subject and the verb, be sure that the verb agrees with. هنقول ايه بقى عشان تبقى صح؟ هنقول with. Let's do it now. That the verb agrees with the object of the preposition. هنا هي كده أوضح. Type. Most of the fire in the woods was extinguished. طيب طبعا most هي الفاعل، لكن الفعل agrees with what? The verb agrees with the object that comes in the prepositional phrase after the subject اللي هو ايه؟ of the fire. مفروض الفعل يمشي مع ايه؟ الفعل يمشي مع كلمة fire. يبقى most of the fire in the woods، دي كمان واحدة prepositional phrase، was extinguished. Most of the fire was extinguished. And this sentence is correct because fire is singular, was is singular. Right. Most of the students in class 7 was promoted to class 8. طيب برضو ما بقولش ان class 7 هي الفاعل، لا. The subject is most and the verb agrees with the object in the prepositional phrase following the subject of quantity. يعني مفروض الفعل يمشي مع ايه؟ يمشي مع students. Most of the students were promoted to class 8. All of the animals in the zoo vaccinated by Dr. Akram. All of the animals. Animals is the noun that the verb should agree with. All of the animals يبقى مش هقول is in no fear، لأن is دي لا هي بتاعت دكتور أكرم ولا هي بتاعت zoo. دي is the verb of all of the animals. All of the animals, this is plural، يبقى it must be are in no fear of catching the disease. كل الحيوانات اللي اتطعمت ما هياش في خوف من إنها تلقط المرض، عدوى المرض. طيب half of the gas دي طبعا singular. Half of the gas which is used in cars طبعا is used ما هياش هي الفعل بتاع half of the gas، هي الفعل بتاع which adjective clause بتوصف gas. Half of the gas which is used in cars are not healthy. طيب أنا عندي half of the gas فين الفعل بتاعها؟ are not healthy. طيب half of the gas is singular يبقى are not healthy is wrong. مفروض إنها تبقى is not healthy on the street. نص البنزين اللي بيستخدم في العربيات ماله is not healthy on the street. ما هوش يعني أو هو ضد الصحة في الطرق. Some of the money in the banks, some of the money is uncountable, so it's singular. Some of the money in the banks دي أنا مش مهمة عندي because it's a prepositional phrase. الجملة الأساسية some of the money are used. طبعا هي some of the money is used. Singular subject, singular verb. All of the employees, plural subject, in the company, مش مهمة. All of the employees which is suffering heavy losses. طيب the company which is suffering heavy losses. طيب which is suffering heavy losses أولا المفروض يجي وراها comma. In the company which is suffering heavy losses ده جزء بيوصف كلمة company لكن الفعل الأساسي بتاعي هو إيه؟ have offered. طيب all of the employees have offered to work extra unpaid hours. Have offered plural verb for a plural subject employees. Alright? طيب let's look at number 7. In spite of what was decided at the meeting جزء برضو غير أساسي. Half of the procedures was not changed. على الرغم من اللي قرروه في الاجتماع half of the procedures نص الإجراءات half of the procedures. This is my subject. Procedures is plural, it needs a plural verb. Half of the procedures was not changed. No, half of the procedures were not changed. Type. Let's look at number 8. We do not know why most of the people is upset. Type. People is a word which is plural but it does not have an S. It's one of those irregular nouns. طيب it's a plural word. ممكن نقول ان singular بتاعها ملهاش singular بتاعها person. We do not know why most of the people is upset. Most of the people, this is plural. Why most of the people are upset. يبقى why most of the people are upset. زي children, زي men, زي women. Right. Let's look at number 9. I know that all of my answers in the exam were correct. All of my answers. All of my answers in the exam جزء مش مهم. All of my answers subject بتاعها were correct. All of my answers were correct. Plural subject answers, plural verb were. Time. The last one. Most of the fire يبقى I need a singular verb. That was set during demonstrations. كل ده إضافات في المعنى. لكن grammatically this is the sentence. Most of the fire were left. Fire أنا ما قلتش most of the fires. أنا قلت most of the fire that was set during demonstrations were left blazing all night. طيب هنا كان ممكن أقول most of the fires يبقى هقول that were set during demonstrations وتبقى were left blazing all night. لكن أنا ممكن برضو أقول fire يبقى most of the fire، يا إما أقول most of the fires were left blazing، يا إما أقول most of the fire was left blazing. ممكن طبعا نقول most of the fires وتبقى الحرائق. alright، يبقى were left blazing. طيب نشوف أوام علشان تقدروا تجيبوها وانتوا بتشوفوا. طيب we need exercise 21. طيب اهي. Most of the fire in the woods was extinguished. Incorrect. Most of the students in class 7 يبقى تبقى students were promoted. أنا آسفة. We have to move it a bit slower. Number 6. Number 7 with the correction. 8 with the correction. 9 and number 10. Alright? So you can look at it after you've tried to do it alone if you're using the printed material, and you can look again at the televised thing. طيب دلوقتي we are going to look at another case where we should be careful of subject-verb agreement. Alright? طيب. Inverted verbs should agree with their subjects. احنا عارفين عدى علينا في محاضرة قبل كده the cases where we invert the subjects and the verbs. يعني where the verb comes before the subject. When the verb comes before the subject, هنا برضو you must be careful of subject-verb agreement. When the subject and the verb are inverted, it is sometimes difficult to locate them. ساعات ببقى مش عارفة بقى طب أنهي واحد هو الفاعل. Make sure you know where the subject and the verb are. لازم أحدد فين الفاعل وفين الفاعل. And which parts may be omitted. يعني هنا مثلا لما أقول in the classroom احنا عارفين ان this is one of the cases where the subject comes after the verb. When you have expressions of place in the classroom where the books I read. لأن الفعل هنا هو بتاع the books. مش أنا كان ممكن أقول the books I read were in the classroom. The books I read, the books were. طيب subject, the books were verb. لما باجي بقى أعمل inversion لأن أنا ابتديت ب in the classroom يبقى لازم الفعل بيجي قبل الفاعل. هاخد بالي إن the verb هنا في الجملة دي is not the verb of classroom. لا, it's the verb for the word books. In the classroom where the books I read أو I read تنفع. طيب in the classrooms where طبعا where غلط لأن where ما هياش الفعل بتاع classrooms لكن where هي الفعل بتاع exam هتبقى ايه was. In the classrooms was the exam held. كان ممكن برضو أقول the exam was held in the classrooms. عقد الامتحان في الفصول. Alright? طيب. In the above examples, you may think that classroom and classrooms are subjects, but they are objects of prepositions, and because the prepositional phrases are place expressions, الكلام اللي قلناه دلوقتي, the subjects and verbs are inverted. In the first example, the subject is plural, and in the second example, the subject is singular. Verbs should agree with their subject. طيب subject verb agreement after inverted verbs. هنا احنا بنفتكر these are the cases where you invert the subject and verb. لما يبقى عندي سؤال، ما يبقى عندي negative, place, condition with no if and comparison. يبقى after question words, negative expressions, place expressions, conditions without if and comparisons, the verb agrees with the subject, which may be after the verb. Which may be after the verb. عايزاكم تاخدوا بالكم من maybe. انتوا عارفين ان ساعات بنكتب maybe. maybe كلمة واحدة. maybe we are going to have another hour for this lecture. Maybe. Maybe هنا معناها perhaps. When it's one word معناها perhaps ربما. لكن when it's a verb بتبقى كلمتين. لأن أنا كان ممكن أقول which can be after the verb, which should be after the verb, which may be after the verb. May هنا is a helping verb. بنقول عليها models هتعدي علينا بعد كده when we do verbs. لكن خدوا بالكم إن maybe كلمة واحدة معناها perhaps. لكن when you are using may as a verb أنا ممكن أقول maybe زي بالظبط إني بقول may come, may go. هي كلمتين. may is the verb وبي ولا go ولا come is an infinitive دي مصدر. Alright? طيب نشوف exercise 22. Each of the following sentences contains an inverted subject and verb. Put the word or phrase which is the cause of inversion in a box. Underline the subject once and the verb twice and indicate if the sentence is correct or incorrect. Time. Only once this week were the children allowed free time during school hours. Only once this week. أنا هنا عندي negative يبقى مفروض الفعل يجي قبل الفاعل فهتبقى only once this week where the children ما بقولش the children were. Only once this week were the children allowed. Like this sentence is correct. Downtown near Tahrir Square. هنا برضو it's an expression of place يبقى مفروض يجي الفعل قبل الفاعل وهو جاي هنا قبل الفاعل لكن is not the verb of Tahrir Square. is the verb of the streets. جاي قبل الفاعل لأن أنا عندي هنا an expression of place at the beginning of the sentence. يبقى downtown near Tahrir Square is the streets. طبعا streets is plural فهتبقى are the streets where demonstrators held positions. طبعا أنا I invert the subject and verb in this sentence because I start with the expression of place. كان ممكن الجملة في أساسها تبقى إيه؟ The demonstrations held positions in the streets which are downtown near Tahrir Square. Or the streets where demonstrators held positions are downtown near Tahrir Square. يبقى بقلبها لاني جبت downtown near Tahrir Square وما قلتش بقى the streets are, قلت are the streets. What in the world is the children screaming about? Is ما هياش هنا الفعل بتاع the world. Is ده أنا عندي سؤال يبقى is the verb of children. What in the world are the children screaming about? He would be studying for the exam. Were he able to get time off work? He would be studying for the exam. Were he able؟ ما قلتش he was able ولا were he able دي يعني if he were able، لأن شلنا if وعندنا يا إما were يا إما should يا إما had، يبقى بجيب الفعل قبل الفاعل. He would be studying for the exam. Were he able to get time off work؟ لو قدر ياخد أجازة من الشغل. This exam has many more questions than do the last one. هنا عندي comparison، يبقى برضو بيجي الفعل قبل الفاعل. لو حطيت الفعل، انتوا عارفين ان الفعل ممكن احطه وممكن ما احطوش. طيب لكن الفعل هنا مش مظبوط مع the last one. The last one is singular. This exam has many more questions than does the last one. بس منطقيا عشان انا بقول the last one يعني فات، ممكن اقول than did the last one، وانتوا عارفين ان did is singular and plural. It's correct for all pronouns. يبقى ما اقدرش اقول than do، اقول than does the last one او than did the last one. Number 6, she did not know that there was so many mistakes. There was so many mistakes. انتوا عارفين there اللي هي الاكسبريشن of place العادية اللي احنا ما بناخدش بالنا بنتكلمها عادي، ما بناخدش بالنا ان this is a place of expression بيجي الفعل قبله. طيب that there was so many mistakes ولا that there were so many mistakes؟ that there were so many mistakes. Number 7, seldom in the history of the world. seldom دي اللي بنقول عليها almost negative. نادرا دي almost negative. ف with the almost negatives برضو بيجي الفعل قبل الفاعل. seldom in the history of the world has so many revolutions. طيب so many revolutions this is plural. يبقى has ولا have؟ تبقى have so many revolutions taken place at the same time. نادرا ما كل هذا العدد من الثورات حدث في نفس الوقت. Number 8, how many big mistakes have the teacher found in your paper? How many big mistakes have the teacher found? طيب the teacher is the subject and the verb comes before the subject because we have a question. يبقى how many big mistakes has the teacher? Have is not the verb of mistakes. It's the verb of the teacher. Has the teacher found in your paper? طيب the new generation of computers is able. طيب هنا الفعل عندي هو ايه؟ computers ولا generation؟ computers is the object of. يبقى the new generation is the subject. Is able, that's correct, singular subject and singular verb, to process far more information than was the older generation. Time. The last one, in the parking lot down the mall, in the parking lot اللي هو الجراج يعني, in the parking lot down the mall, مش دي expression of place, was the cars, was ما هياش الverb بتاع mall. In the parking lot down the mall, كل ده expression of place. Was the cars of shoppers, were the cars of shoppers, were the cars of shoppers. اللي هي كانت أساسا الجملة the cars of shoppers were in the parking lot down the mall. اتغير الترتيب لأني ابتديت بالexpression of place. طيب this ends the first part of lecture 5 and we continue next time. Thank you very much. We continue next time with the last part of lecture number 5. Thank you.